too. So I'm gonna start the recording now. David, no, coming in. Record this computer. Okay, great. So I'm gonna do a very brief introduction, guys, to Bill. And the truth is, I promise you, I will not do it justice because of the amount of things this man does and the successes he has and the experience he has. I'm so happy you guys are all here. I love it. And the wisdom. So for me as a coach, like what I find super impactful from people is when they have life experience that offers an immense amount of wisdom. And I'm not even going to go into all the amazing things that he does. I'm going to ask him to do that for himself because I'm not going to do it justice like he will. But he is a remarkable coach. He's one of my coaches. I just finished a, 3-month program with Bill. And he's insightful, he's powerful, and he offers so much. So I invite you to be super present for the next hour or so while we're here. Bill is going to be going deep into this work and offer us all an opportunity, including myself, to get a ton out of it. So I am super stoked and grateful that you're all here. And Bill, beyond grateful to have you. You look smashing. And I'll let you take it away, brother. Thank you so much.
First of all, Nick, I love your energy. Thank you so much for how you show up always. It's amazing.
Thank you.
How many of you would like to experience deep joy and happiness in your life? Give me a show of hands. Excellent. Thank you. Hands down. And how many of you would like the secret to unlocking the best ways to design your life and not have to manage your circumstances? Thank you. Hands down. So my name is Bill Carmody. I am a 25-year international keynote speaker. I have my own training and my own coaching business. And I've been doing this work for so long, I love it. I've given my TED Talk on storytelling. I've published my second book, just came out, The 3 Rules of Marriage. There's so many things I'm excited to be sharing with you today. And I know you could have been anywhere. It's on the East Coast, it's 3:15 on a Thursday. That is a big ask to have everyone show up, and I am so thrilled that each and every one of you chose to be here with me today. And I am excited to share what I'm about to share. So I'm going to start with a story. So I built and exited 2 multi-million-dollar marketing agencies. And in my last agency, I got the call you don't want to hear. So this was the event. Phone call, client, biggest client. We're not going to renew the contract next year. Largest client I had. So now, is that a good event or is that a bad event? How many people think that's a good event? Okay, 1 or 2, great. And how many people think it's a bad event? Yeah. And what I'm going to share with you today is that all events are neutral. The event itself is neutral. But I don't know if you've noticed this, but we're pretty phenomenal storytellers, aren't we? We make up these stories about what it means. So I'm going to ask you, in this event, what might be a story that I would tell myself? And I'm going to ask you to take yourselves off mute and play with me today. What might be a story that I would tell myself when my largest client calls me and tells me that they're not renewing the contract? Yes. I see Evan and I see Mary took yourself off. So who wants to jump in?
I must be doing something wrong if I lost my biggest client. This is bad.
Yes. And what might I say about myself?
I'm not good at my job anymore.
Yeah, I'm not great at my job anymore. Mary, what were you going to say?
Evan's reading my mind. Pretty much the same. I did something wrong with I managed the client wrong. I did something wrong. I might have said something wrong. I'm not good enough.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, let me share my screen here for a second. So even in that sharing, what you heard was there's some good and some bad at that event, right? There's some things that are bad. It could be good. It could be good because maybe this client's taking up all my time and my resources and it's forcing me to reinvent myself. Could be good, could be bad. But either way, I'm making up a story. I'm making up a story about that event. And now what I'm going to ask you, when I tell that story, I tell it to my employees, I tell that story to myself, I tell that story to other people. As I tell that story, what do I begin to do? I start to have something. What do I start to have coming out of that story? I have a what? As I start to listen to my own story, I start to what?
You believe that reality?
I believe it. It's belief. As that story gets repeated over and over again, I begin to believe the story. And as I believe the story, I'm anchoring myself to what? What am I anchoring myself to?
Identity, self-worth.
Yeah. What else? Where do I get this story from?
A fixed narrative?
Yeah. It's a fixed narrative, and it's coming and anchoring from my past. So I'm anchoring myself into the past as I tell that story, and my story starts to become my belief. And the more I believe that story, the more I anchor myself to the past. Now with the past, I'm now trying to predict the what?
Future.
The future. So as I tell this story, I connect it to my belief. My belief then anchors me to the past, and then I use that past to predict my future. And now I'm no
You're
longer
never present.
Yeah, I'm not
You're
present.
never present. Ever.
Perfect, David. 100%. I'm not present. I am completely focused on my past and all the things that I made up about my past. And now I'm looking toward my future and predicting my future based on my past. And so as I predict my future, what ends up happening then?
You limit your capability.
And it
Create a
becomes your
ceiling.
truth.
It becomes my truth. And what am I throwing myself into? I'm no longer proactive. I'm
Reactive. Yeah.
reactive. Exactly. So an event happens, right? This event happens. I lose my biggest client. In that event, I then tell myself a story about why I lost my biggest client. That story becomes my belief. Now, in that belief, as I tell that story more and more often, I start to build a box around that belief. That becomes how I operate from. And how am I operating from? I'm operating from the past. And I'm looking at the past to predict my future. And as I do that, I have a reaction. Now, interestingly enough, with that reaction, like things start to happen for me, right? So I'm going to tell you a different story. I want to talk, this is something everyone can relate to. If you've ever done a sales call, you make a sales call and you get a no, right? And I make another sales call, I get another no. I make a third sales call, get a third no. And every time I pick up the phone, I'm getting a no. Suddenly, when I look at my phone, it's not a phone. I'm feeling rejected every single time. My story and my belief starts to be created because of all these rejections. And so what might I be believing about myself? What are some of the stories and the things I've been thinking about as I get rejected with each one of these sales calls?
Bad at sales.
I'm bad at sales. I suck at sales, 100%. I'm terrible at sales. I'm no good at it. And now when I think about a sales, I'm no longer actually thinking about an event like sales, right? So what do I do with any event like sales call? I see that I'm supposed to make a sales call. What do I do instead?
Avoid.
Avoid. I resist, 100%. Thank you, Jason. And so now I've got an event. This is a sales call. I get rejected by my sales call. I continue to be rejected. So each time I pick up the phone, I'm getting rejected. So I begin to build a story about why I'm being rejected. That story becomes my belief. That belief anchors me into the past. All my past history, every rejection I've ever felt is now predicting the future. I'm no good at sales. And so I react. And what I do is I avoid. So I'm not going to that event anymore. And that continues to happen. Let's take another example. Let's say you get fired from your job. Everyone's had a job, get fired. What do? First thing we do with our job is we go send out our resume and no one responds. So we send out another resume and no one responds. Every time we send a resume, Nobody responds. So I start thinking, well, I'll get creative. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to put my resume up on LinkedIn. I'm going to send out to the people that I know. And I'm going to continue to push my resume. But nobody responds. Eventually, I stop. And I start realizing, oh my God, this story that I make up is that I'm not hireable. And I start to believe that nobody wants to hire me. So I start to close my mouth. I no longer talk about getting hired. I no longer look for any opportunities, and I'm not listening to anything anyone's saying because I'm committed to the fact that I am not worth hiring. So what do I end up doing? I end up moving back with my parents. Hey, mom and dad, so great to see you. I am unemployable. This happens way more than we want to admit. So we have an event. In that event, we develop a story about that event. That story creates a belief. The belief anchors us to the past. The past predicts the future. It puts us in this reaction. Now it's becoming an auto reaction. It's automatic for us. We're automatically looking at this event and saying, But I get payoffs from this. So I want you to think about it. What would be like the payoff, like a racket? The payoff I get for those stories and belief that I'm not a good salesperson, that I'm not able to be hired, that there's a reason that I'm not able to keep my biggest client. What would be the payoff for those stories and beliefs?
Don't have to confront it.
Yeah, I don't have to confront it. Not at all. Absolutely. I get to be right. What else?
Safe. You get to be
I get to be safe. 100%. I get to be safe. What else?
It's a known outcome.
It's a known outcome. So I get to be in control. Absolutely. You guys are nailing it. So I get to be right. I get to be in control. I get to be comfortable. And I get to be safe. And you see, this is resistance. And what resists? What happens when you resist? When you resist, persist. Exactly. Thank you, Nick. And so we are at effect. We play it safe. We stay safe. We call this resistance and maintenance because that's exactly what we're doing. We're resisting the events that could change the entire course of our lives. And we're in maintenance mode by being right, being in control, being comfortable, being safe. We are resigned to the inevitability. I'm a terrible salesperson. I will never be able to sell anything. I'm resigned. It's inevitable. I'm going to lose my biggest client. Why should I even try? Why even try? I'm going to lose them anyway. Resigned, inevitable. No one's going to hire me. Why should I put my resume out to anyone? Why should I spend time on LinkedIn? No one's going to hire me anyway. Resignation, inevitability. And so what ends up happening here? As I experience an event, I tell my story, my belief, goes to my past, future, auto reaction, I avoid the event. And it reinforces my box in the belief. So every time, story, past, future, auto reaction, avoid the event, reinforce the belief. Story goes right to reaction. I'm skipping it now. I'm just going right there. And it reinforces my belief. Until suddenly, I just like event reaction, 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 until my belief is so solid. It's no longer a belief. For me, it is. It is. See, we think we're reacting to the event, but we're not. We're not reacting to the event. We're reacting to the stories and the beliefs we made up about the event. That phone call, making that call to get the next client, it's charged. It's no longer just a phone. I'm experiencing all the rejection every time I touch that phone. That resume is no longer a resume. That resume has all the charge of the rejections and the quietness, the being ignored. I can't even look at the next client because all I see is I'm going to lose them anyway. Why should I even try? That's not the event. It's the story and belief that I made up about the event. This is our story. This is our belief. We make stuff up and then we forget that we made it up. You say, I don't like sales. Not true. It's the story and belief that you have about the sales, right? It's not that you don't like the sales. You have a story and a belief about this event called sales. The event is neutral. Selling happens every day by millions of people. People buy and sell all day long. But when you have a story and event, you have a story and belief about the event, you won't do it. And if you have a story and belief about being rejected, you're not going to put yourself out there. And what do you end up doing? You close out the possibilities. You close the door. There's no interest in this. Why would you put yourself out there if you believe that you already know the outcome? Because you're anchoring yourself to the past, you're predicting your future, you're just going to avoid it altogether. And you close yourself off. You miss your opportunities. And what's crazy is on the other end of that door is unlimited possibilities. Unlimited! Anything you ever wanted in your life is behind that door. And that door is just an event that we now have charged up because we created a story and a belief and forgot we made it up. But what are we doing here? Helping people. That's it. That's why we're here. We're all here because we have a mission and a purpose to help other people. But when we allow ourselves to avoid these events because of our stories and our beliefs, we're missing out on the opportunity to change the world. That's the tragedy. There was a time when a black cat was bad luck. It just is. No one questioned it. You saw a black cat, bad luck. It just is. It wasn't until someone said, hey, that's a superstition. Maybe a black cat is bad luck. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But when we treat our is and our superstitions as is, we are not at choice. So yes, there was a time in our history when a black cat is bad luck. Today, black cat is superstition. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't bad luck, but we're a choice. I submit to you that all of your beliefs are superstitions. All of them, right? That's how it is. I'm terrible at sales. That's how people are. Work is hard. I'm no good at fill in the blank. I'll never be rich. All these beliefs are superstitions. All of them. So what I'm going to ask you to do today is to stop reacting to these events. And instead, surrender to my commitment. Now, when I say surrender, it's not the same thing as the inevitability we're talking about in resistance. Surrender in the context here is different. I don't know about you, I love whitewater rafting. But the only way you are successful in whitewater rafting is if you surrender to the river. That doesn't mean you're resigned. You're an active participant. You're steering like crazy. You see these massive rapids and you surrender to them. You know what's coming, you go after it, and you're fully present in the moment. That's what I mean by surrender. Because if you don't surrender, what are you going to do? You're going to paddle off to one edge of the river or the other edge, and you'll be stopped. You'll have no momentum. But when you surrender, you're fully committed, and you're just taking whatever comes and you're rolling with it. It's a much better way of being, and it'll ultimately get you to the outcome you're committed to. So let's go back. An event happens, but instead of going into the story and the belief, I stop. I get off of it, and I surrender. And in that surrendering, I'm no longer anchoring myself to the past or the future. What am I anchoring myself to? If I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future, I am what?
Present.
Present, where I get to look. I can be present and I can look at what's really happening. not the story or belief I made up about what's happening. And from there, then I can go into create, respond, choose. I am at choice. And from there, I have a new moment. I've created this event. And what are some of the payoffs of this? We have the payoffs of the resistance of and maintenance of being in control, being comfortable, being safe. What are the payoffs of being fully present?
Growth.
Growth, absolutely. What else?
Opportunity.
Opportunities, 100%. What else?
Awareness.
Awareness. You see for what they are, absolutely. And ultimately your success. You're gonna get your success. You're gonna get all the joy and happiness. You're gonna be living in abundance. And from there, you're gonna be willing to take risks and be at cause. To be at cause means to be at cause for the outcomes you're committed to. To be willing to risk not looking good, not being in control, not being safe or comfortable. Willing to risk all that so that you can surrender and have the growth that you want to see in your life. This is about designing your life. And I design my life the way I say I'm up to. This is what I'm up to. And so I'm not managing my circumstances. I'm designing my life. And in the context of designing my life, I'm committed to my outcomes. I know what I'm up to, and I'm designing it exactly that way. See, when you're on autopilot, you're in reaction. And all you're doing is reacting to whatever comes in front of you. Today it's this, tomorrow it's that, got an email, got a text message, something showed up, didn't know this, didn't know that, you're in reaction. But when you design your life, you never forget what you're committed to. And you're always present and making choices. You got to take the lie out of the beliefs. A lot of these beliefs are lies. These stories we've told each other, they're lies. It's the I'll buy your bullshit if you buy my bullshit. We let go of the stories and those beliefs. That's where the real freedom comes from. But I want to acknowledge we are meaning-making machines. As human beings, we make stuff up and then we forget we made it up. And we do it all day long. And I'm going to tell you the greatest gift that we can experience is to be wrong. Because in the being wrong, we get to learn things. We get to experience things. We get to be fully present and not make up a story or a belief about them. And let's talk about being inauthentic. What's another off word? As soon as you are what? Inauthentic, you what? Author. Yeah? Another off word, author?
Authority is all I can think of.
What's that?
Authority is all I can think of.
Okay, great. Well, let's go with that. Same thing. Authority of your life. I say author of your life. But this is the idea. Whether you're the author or the authority, the point is you're the hero in your own journey. And the question is, what are you authoring? See, when you start to see that to be the author of your life is to take responsibility for all that's happening in your life. Instead of being on autopilot, we got to get off autopilot. You drive your Tesla like this, you're going to get into a car accident, you're going to die. And most people live their life this way. They're committed to all the things that are happening and they're on autopilot. And they don't even see it. They're just going through their day, managing their circumstances, and they're not stopping to design their life. And that's my request from you today. And we're going to take a moment and talk about what it means to truly design your life and to be at choice and to be fully present. And that's the beginning. When we can be fully present and not anchored in our past, not predicting our future from our past, then we truly are the authors of our life. We become the hero in your own story. And so I want to ask you now, I've gone through a lot of content. What did you hear? I'm going to take off the screen share for a second. I want to hear, what did you hear?
I'm hearing that the stories that we create in our mind are much like superstitions. They're not true. Even the ones that serve us sometimes may not be true. And that's if we don't question what is happening in those moments when the story plays, then we have no authority or choice over what runs, and therefore are victims of, or therefore are, in other words, not victims, but we end up running the program and we get the same results.
Yeah, and thank you, Jason. And by the way, when Jason shares, I'm just going to ask you to say thank you, Jason, and give us a little applause here. Thank you, Jason. And Jason, what I love about what you're sharing is, I mean, you could say that is a victim, because when you are at effect and you're not at cause, you are reacting to life's circumstances. And in those reactions, I mean, this is where people experience being a victim, because they don't feel empowered at all. So I love what you said. And, you know, it can be a number of different ways, but that's exactly right. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? What else did you hear today?
That you're shutting the door on unlimited possibilities by these false stories that you're telling yourself. So you're kind of getting in your own way for what, like, you may want these unlimited possibilities, and I think we all do, but like we start to create these stories that actually prevent us from having what we really want.
Beautiful. Everyone give Jill a hand. Thank you, Jill. That's awesome. One more. What did you hear?
Just surrender.
And what does that mean for you, Ashley?
That means not controlling, not trying to control everything in my life, and trusting the process, and that whatever is happening is exactly what's supposed to happen, and just being okay with it, and knowing that my past experiences are only giving me this emotion that's trying to control what's happening. And if I just surrender and trust that, it's going to open the door to stuff that I can't even imagine, because it's so great.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Ashley. That's awesome. By the way, your dreams are bigger than you. Your dreams cannot be contained by you. The universe is big enough to contain your dreams, but you are not big enough to contain your dreams. And what I love about that is when you're committed to your outcomes, you'll get there. And when you surrender, there's things bigger than you that you don't even understand that will conspire to support you to get your outcomes. Love it, Ashley. That was awesome. Thank you for that share. So now we're going to do an exercise. You guys ready for an exercise? It's going to be really simple. I'm going to put up 3 prompts. I'll throw them in the chat, but I'm also going to put them up on the screen. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to take 5 minutes to just journal some answers, and then we're going to share them in a small group. And we're going to do a breakout here. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, let's go back here. All right. You can take a picture of this, and I'm also going to put it in the chat, so whatever supports you. We're going to ask you to journal on 3 points. Number 1, 3 things. Oops, I'm wrong about that. Wrong prompts. That's hilarious. This is another presentation that I had in the background. Nice. Okay, let's try that again. Here are the prompts. The reflection exercise. What's the one story or belief I've made up and forgot I made up? So prompt number 1, what's the one story or belief that I have made up and forgot I made up? Number 2, where have I been on autopilot in my life? Number 2, where have I been on autopilot in my life? And number 3, what's opening up for me about maintenance and growth is? What's opening up for me about maintenance and growth is? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop these into the chat so you have them and you can keep accessing them. And then, let's see if we get back here. Oh, I know it is. Stop sharing. There we go. And take 5 minutes. And let's do these little journal prompts. And like I said, you're going to be sharing these afterwards. And I'm going to share so you can keep track of time.
Bill, quick question for question 1 and 2.
Yes.
Do those two things have to be, the responses have to relate to each other? So like,
No, they do not.
wherever,
Great
they
question.
don't.
They can be totally separate. But the first one, what one story or belief that I've made up and forgot I made up, can be totally different than what have I been on autopilot in my life. They may be related, but they don't have to be.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. And after we do the breakouts, I want to come back to a question Jessica put in the chat. Working with a lot of people who deal with trauma, Jessica, let's dive into that, because I think it's a fantastic question. And I'm sorry that I didn't hear it when you posted it. But we'll get back to that right after the breakout. Okay, we got about 90 seconds left, so please finish up. And the reason we're doing this up front is so that you have some notes and things you're going to share, and I'll explain what we're going to do next in just a minute. Okay. Excellent. Everybody complete, or does anyone need an extra minute or so to finish up? All right, if you're incomplete, you can raise your hand. If not, we're going to continue on. Great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send you in a breakout room, and you're going to have one buddy. So we're going to send it out there, and it's random. So if you've already had buddies set up, this is going to be mixed up. And I'm going to ask you to take 3 minutes, and I'll tell you when to change. It'll take 3 minutes to share what you wrote down, and then I'll switch, and I'll make sure everybody knows, and the other partner will share too. And then we'll have you automatically come back in about 6 minutes. Any question about the exercise? Okay, great. Here we go. Okay, hold on a second. I'll get you two of you into a different breakout room. Hold on a second. Eight. There you go.
And we're back.
Almost. We gave him a few more seconds to come back if people were finishing. I always give them an extra, bonus seconds just to wrap up if they're in the middle of something. So it'll be automatically coming back in a minute.
We were crazy efficient over here, Bill. Crazy efficient.
I bet.
I think that's what happens when you're like a group instructor. You just know how to time everything out.
You got it. All right, Melissa. Well, does anybody want to share what they shared in their partner group? Yes, Jill, go ahead. And then Evan, I'll come to you.
Okay, I gotta pull my notes up. So I said for the reactionary stuff, like I'm on autopilot with like the day-to-day, like everything you were describing, like answering the email, answering the text, like everything is just reactionary, like taking care of the kids, schooling them, that the whole day. And I was telling Corey, like I try to journal about that every morning, like be present today and stay present, because I know my whole day is like I'm reacting. Yeah. The story that I keep telling myself is I will always be like financially stressed or worried because I'm a single mom. And as a single mom, you're worried about finances and providing for your kids. And I'm the sole financial provider. So I'm always going to be struggling with money and worried about money. And that's what I keep telling myself. And for the third question, I said, my financial freedom is totally within my hands. And like, I can make, this could be less anxiety provoking and less stressful. And I have the capability of creating my financial freedom.
Yeah, you do. That's great. So Jill, question, when you think about this, I don't want to get into the tyranny of how, but do you really believe that in your essence of your being when you say it?
I do, that I can change this.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny because I visualize it. And when I say money figures, I'm like, oh, okay, which are like really a lot, but it doesn't feel like out of my reach.
Beautiful. Yeah. We live in a place of abundance and sometimes we forget. And when it comes down to when it comes to your financial freedom, it really is about understanding that all the opportunities are everywhere you choose to look. And when we focus on scarcity, we experience scarcity. And we focus on abundance, we get abundance. And I can tell you, someone who's financially free, it took me a long time to get there. As soon as I did, it just switched. It was like a switch and then it never looks back. Because now if I need to make more money, I just make it. I know it's crazy to say that, but when you know that you can, you step into it and you just do. You just do it. Awesome. Everyone give Jill a hand. Thank you, Jill. Anyone else want to share? Evan, you had your hand up? You want to come in?
Yeah, sure. So my belief that I forgot I made up was that I told Jordan, success comes at a certain age, where like I didn't think you were successful until you were like my parents' age, and that's just how I thought, and it would just happen one day, which kind of goes into my into the autopilot for me, where I've reached a certain level of success that I've been like, pretty okay with, that I've talked to Nick Pags about. And I've just been like good enough where I am. Cause I always like had that thought that one day I'll just have more money or be more successful, or it just happens like that, like, which is ridiculous. And then number 3, I don't know if I got confused or what, but, my maintenance I thought was coming up for me was that if I keep doing what I'm doing, then I'll, live a pretty good life. And the growth that's coming up, I wrote for growth is that my maintenance stage is crushing my growth. So I feel like it kind of melds into each other. I'm not sure.
That's great. So what did you notice about that? So these things melding into each other, what are you noticing about that?
I guess just that there's a theme that comes along with my initial belief, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And the belief starts to anchor that belief anchors it on itself in the past events that predict the future, that gets you back into auto reaction. So it's great. If you see it, then you can begin to disrupt it, but it becomes that pattern to sort of see what pattern am I on? And if I can start to understand that pattern, then I can start to disrupt it. Awesome. Sure. Evan, are you complete?
I'm good. I wish I was, starting at Jordan's age.
There's the limiting belief. No, truthfully, I mean, here's what's funny. I feel the same way. I'm working with some people that are in their early 20s that blow my mind, like blow my mind. And I see them like, man, if I was that way when I was 21, like watch out. But then again, that's another story that I tell myself, because I've created all these other things and I'm really happy with what I've created. So we get to step into the present moment and not feel like regret about what we didn't do in the past or anxious about what we're about to do in the future. It's great.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Evan. All right. Let's see. Who else? It was Corey. I think you had your hand up. Yes, Corey, please.
Awesome. One of the things that Jill and I talked about was I actually struggle to dive deep and be present right now with the relationships with my family, whether it's my parents, my younger brother. And I feel like sometimes I'm just going through the motions with them, which is such a limiting belief, because my work is to dive deeper with people that I talk to. And I feel like I'm not doing that with the ones closest to me.
Well,
and then
before you go
opening,
on, before you go on, what I love about that is an acknowledgement that you see the possibility that you can immediately change. So the whole stop, get off it, right? Be present. Now you're at choice. So like whether that's true or not, you're now present to the possibility that it's true. And in that possibility, you can make another choice. I love that. Thank you.
I love that advice. That's good insight. Yeah. And I'm working on slowing down, and I told Jill, I'm learning how to be present in everything that I do, not just business stuff in my whole life. So I guess opening up for growth here, I wrote, I control every aspect of my life. If I want something to happen, I can make it happen. And all the security that I need exists within me.
Beautiful. Awesome, Corey. Are you complete?
Thank you. I am. That feels good just saying that out loud. So thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Give Corey a hand. Jessica, are you willing to come on here to talk about the question you posted in the chat?
Yeah, if I can. I just I'm at work right now. I might have to mute myself if you do hear some of those individuals with trauma in the background.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I get the context of your question, and then you can definitely go back on mute if that supports you. What I'm reading from the chat is, I work with a lot of people who deal with trauma. I'm trying to see the application to other things that aren't rooted in very real events and not stories, still digesting. And so what I heard in that was, it's one thing to talk about the event itself and the context of the stories and beliefs that we make up about the event, but what about actually traumatic events? Is that right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
So Jessica, I'm gonna do you a solid, right? I'm gonna touch on this really briefly right now, but this is what I'm actually gonna do as a follow-up. I just hit this very topic Tuesday night. I'm gonna send it to Nick, and he's gonna send it to whoever else is interested. But this was about gratitude and the secret to happiness. And I shared my most traumatic event, which was, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing now because it's long, but the short version is, I actually was at a Christmas brunch, and my son, my youngest son, who's 7 years old, fell 18 feet, and I thought he died.
Oh, wow.
If you want to talk about tragedy and trauma, as a parent, there's no greater fear than seeing your child laid out on the floor and thinking they're dead. And so I can tell you in the God's honest truth, right, that I am grateful for that experience. And that's crazy to say, because I wasn't at the time it happened. And that's exactly what I unpack in that entire 1 hour session on Tuesday. But the short version, what I'm gonna share with you and the people who are going through this, is those traumatic events are coming back to the same source of what we talked today, which is not to say like, okay, a child gets molested or a woman gets raped or something, like a murder happens. Like there's some really, really heavy shit out there. And yet,
yeah, that's what I deal with.
Yeah. So I am not in any way dismissing any of that. What I think is important is to understand that there are perspectives that we hold. And when we talk about the distinction of what is fact and what is interpretation, what happens and how do you actually step up and be in such a way that you actually can be empowered despite the circumstance that occurred. And so I have two different versions. I have this one, which is called Victim Accountable. I have a Victim Accountable version, which goes into depth about understanding the experience of victim and the experience of accountable. And what I shared in that was twin boys who both were taken advantage of by their dad. and they both had traumatic experiences, and one ended up changing the world by going out and talking to other children who were molested and had a similar experience to him, and the other one ended up in jail. And so what I want to share in this is that both kids had the exact same experience, and yet they had two very different outcomes. And so it comes down to neither is true, accountable or victim, neither is true. But what they both do is they give you a perspective and how you choose to live your life from that perspective. You can either be empowered by any event or you can be victimized by it. It is a choice. And it takes a lot of work to get a healing over these traumatic events you're speaking into. So I am not dismissing the work that gets to be done in order to have that happen. And when it is done, it's empowering. Jessica, does that support you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just I was feeling like it could be discussed in different ways. So like the way that you discussed it before made total sense to like applications in my own life. Yeah. And then the way you just discussed it now totally supports, you know, how someone would deal with a real life traumatic event. So I think just having that other way that you explained it really helped.
Right. And if you want to go deeper,
I really appreciate you.
Yeah, Jessica, you too. And if you want to go deeper, like I said, I have a lot of content there, and I'm happy to share it with Nick. He can share it with the group. I would love to I know what you're working on. You're up to great things, Jessica, and I would love to support you as you support so many other people. And so I
Absolutely
really appreciate what you do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bill,
my pleasure.
Bill, Ashley had a question about what you were just speaking on. Ash, go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so I've always wondered about this, how two people have the same experience and one person goes on and, you know, conquers all of this stuff and is like does wonderful. And then another person is like, you know, drugs or jail or, you know, just living as the victim. And I guess my question is like, even if that happens at a young age, like how does one person just go through it and overcome all of it? Like not everybody even goes to therapy to do that, but one person just does it. Like they just automatically do it. Is it because somebody like said something to them once that created a more positive story and they can move on? Or like, how does that happen? I wonder this because my sister and I are two completely different people, and she is a drug abuser and alcohol abuser and all of that. So
thank you for that context, Ashley. You know, in the story about the twins, what's ironic was when the research was being done on these twins, and this was actually a true story, they asked the question, what was the deciding factor? And both answered the same exact sentence. They uttered the exact same sentence, which was, how could it have been any other way? Think about that for a second. The one that's a drug abuser in jail, how could it have been any other way? I was abused by my father. He took advantage of me. How could it have been any other way? And the one that went on to change the lives of millions of children, how could it have been any other way? I was abused as a child. I get to do the work, and I get to help as many children who do this and have gone through this so that they can be inspired to step into their best self. How could it be any other way? And yeah, if you're able to connect with a therapist and a coach and you have the tools and transformation, awesome. But all of this comes down to perspective. It's the perspective we choose to hold. So Ashley, bringing it home for you, if you really want to dive into this with you and your sister, what is this perspective you hold? What is the perspective your sister holds? That's the work. Because you made some decisions, she made some decisions, and both are directing your outcome. And how could it be any other way?
Fascinating to me. It's really mind-blowing. It really is, because I just am like, why do I have this perspective and she has one? Like, why? And I don't know if I'll ever have that answer, like, but it's absolutely fascinating.
So when I send these other videos out there too, Ashley, I'd love to hear from you if these other two support you. When we look at victim accountable, that may open up some things for you. And we looked at fact interpretation, that may open up some things for you. So if you're willing to spend a little more time with this, I would love for you to take a look at what I've prepared, and you tell me what opens up for you in the context of you and your sister. Because again, it's, I don't propose to have answers here. I'm just looking at the questions and I'm sharing what I've learned. And that doesn't make it right. They're just my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see that.
Yes, me too. I'm
Thank you.
excited to share. That's great. Well, let's, so Nick, as we bring this to a close, anything else you want to speak into or share? I really appreciate the opportunity to do this with your team, and it means the world to me. So is there anything else you wanted to speak into?
Yeah, guys, just throw some love in the chat so that Bill can appreciate for a moment what he just did, because I know this group, and there's a very talkative group and a very like rambunctious group, but to see in the best way possible, and to watch them all so in your work, Bill, is such a gift. And they get a lot of my voice all the time because it's what they signed up for. And I'm so grateful when I feel as though I have somebody such as you to be able to step in, and I had not even the tiniest doubt that you would all get what you just got from Bill, because he's a remarkable speaker. And by the way, and this is a belief of mine I'm sticking to, he's a phenomenal person. And that's what makes him so wonderful and makes the work so wonderful. Like it, and Tori just said it, I can tell. That's the energy we all receive on this side of the computer, Bill. So I just want to acknowledge you for that and thank you. And I'm so grateful. And I think I speak for the team when we all say we're very grateful for what you just did for us. So thank you.
Woo! Nick, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Honestly, this is my calling. This is what I do. I love to serve. This is the whole reason I'm here. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to be in this moment with all of you and to be able to share what I've learned with all of you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your focus. Thank you for interacting. Thanks for playing full out. Each and every one of you really stepped into this, and it made it an amazing experience for me because you all showed up the way you showed up. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. So Bill, talk to us, because everybody's, where can we find Bill? So please tell us, where can we find
all right. So here's my request. If I can make one request today, here's what it is. Mark your calendars for September 3rd, which is next Thursday, September 3rd, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. I am working on becoming a best-selling author on Amazon, and here's what I need. I'm dropping the price of my book, The 3 Rules of Marriage, for the Kindle edition to $2.99. So if you're willing to invest $3, you can make me a best-selling author. And I can't wait to do that, because I've published books before, but this is now I'm working with a publisher that's like helping me understand how to work the system when it comes to Amazon. I'm happy to share that as a separate one when we all come back when you're ready to write your book. But the idea there is that's one thing you could support me on. And to find the link, go to 3rulesofmarriage.com, and I'll put that in the chat. There you go. And that is my book. That's the website for the book. And then the other way to reach me is my email, bill@billcarmody.com, also in the chat, and my website is billcarmody.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm not active on Facebook. You can connect with me on Facebook. I'll happily connect with you. But if you really want to like chat and have conversations, LinkedIn or my website or any of the places that I just shared on there. September 3rd. So Thursday, September 3rd at 11 a.m. Eastern. And it's important, the time is important. Between 11 and 12, it's a 1 hour window. We're gonna generate between 1 and 200 book sales for $3. So again, it's not a big ask, but I appreciate it because every single sale matters, because it will ensure that we get the Amazon bestseller status. And I'll come back and celebrate with you all. And we'll do a special event just for that. If anyone's interested, we'll do that separately, okay? Awesome.
And we Beal remember this better than me, so and she's here, so this is great. We'll make a little event out of it. We'll have a time with our group to jump in together and buy the book together, and we'll celebrate you, so that not only are we physically doing the action, but we're manifesting exactly what you're requesting. So we're in, Bill.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to, guys, as a coach who comes in and guest speaks for somebody, it is an act of beautiful service. That's what he's doing right now. And most of you who are coaches, you will experience this feeling. And you have already, of watching all of you jump onto each other's pages. And it's an incredible feeling. And how we serve, at least here, how we serve our guest coaches is I would like you to take a picture if you're not on your phone. take a picture of the screen. We can all cheese and smile and share like on your biggest takeaway on social, wherever you do that. And just put Bill's email address. Bill, if you want to reach this guy, he was amazing. He taught me blah, blah, blah. Reach him at bill@billcarmody.com or whatever the email is. It's there, bill@billcarmody.com. So let's do that. Let's take a picture. Grab your phones. Get your head did. I know this is like kind of the awkward part for taking pictures, but it's important. All right. I'm cheesing hard. Here we go. 1, 2, 3 pictures. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I would request on behalf of Bill that you guys post in some way, social, Facebook, Insta, send it to friends, whatever, and just put his email there so that people can reach out to him. You don't use Instagram, correct, Bill?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm on, but I'm not active. I do Twitter. I have 70,000 followers on Twitter, so at Bill Carmody. But again, that's old school. I know. It's proving my age and my generation. Sorry.
Jason said, "What's your TikTok?" TikTok is a couple steps away. Okay?
I know. I get to upgrade my social media as well. So that'll be my next thing. So thank you.
Anybody's got to say before we bounce? Feel free. Speak now. Just thank you, Bill. We're also very grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I really appreciate it. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you. Have an amazing day. And
Thank you very much.
Yes, my pleasure. Bye.